Sagittarius, God wants you to leave somewhere, for a reason. Sagittarius, take a moment. Breathe. Feel into the part of you that's been growing more restless by the day. There's a message moving through the layers of your reality. One you can't quite explain, but you feel it in your bones. Something no longer fits. A job, a city, a relationship, even an identity you've worn for too long. And no matter how much you try to push through it, something inside is whispering, it's time to go. This isn't about drama or escapism. This is sacred. There's a divine urgency in the air right now. A soul-level nudge that's trying to move you away from what's become too small for your spirit. Sagittarius, you were born to seek, to grow, to expand beyond what others think is enough. And when your soul starts to squirm inside a life that no longer reflects who you're becoming, the universe responds. Doors begin to close, people fall away, and the path ahead begins to shimmer, uncertain but alive. This message isn't about fear, it's about freedom. You're not being punished, you're being prepared. So if you felt that strange dissonance rising, if the places, people, or patterns around you feel like echoes of an old self, this message is for you. And if it resonates, I invite you to like, share, or subscribe. Not for the numbers, but to affirm that you're ready. Ready to walk toward the life your spirit has been trying to lead you to all along. Gate 1: the call to exit. Why Sagittarius must leave to expand. There comes a moment in every Sagittarian's life when the very air around them begins to feel too still. The sky that once promised infinite paths begins to press inward. Conversations turn stale. Places that once felt sacred begin to lose their color. And it's in that quiet discomfort, often dismissed by others as just a phase, that the universe begins to whisper, it's time to move on. For Sagittarius, staying still isn't just a challenge. It's soul suffocation. Your spirit was never meant to be boxed in. Not by roles, routines, relationships, or even versions of yourself that you've outgrown. You are ruled by Jupiter, the great expander. And when your external world no longer reflects your internal evolution, the restlessness you feel is not rebellion, it's alignment. This isn't a trivial shift. Right now, a rare configuration of cosmic energies is forming around Sagittarius. The signs may already be appearing in your life. A sudden lack of fulfillment in work that used to excite you. A growing unease in relationships that once felt safe. Recurring dreams about far-off places or unknown futures. Emotional tension rising without a clear cause. These aren't random. They are invitations. The divine is nudging you out of what's familiar. Not to disorient you, but to realign you with your deeper calling. Many Sagittarians resist this moment, confusing stability with loyalty or comfort with purpose. You may stay too long in places where your spirit is quietly dying, simply because you once dreamed that this would be the place you'd bloom. But the truth is, Sagittarius is not meant to bloom in one place. You are meant to grow beyond, and sometimes growth begins with release. Leaving doesn't mean you failed. It means you've completed the lesson. It means you've heard the call of your own expansion and chosen not to ignore it. It means you trust that the universe has already prepared what's next. You just haven't stepped into it yet. Spiritual relocation isn't always geographical. It can mean walking away from an identity that no longer holds meaning. It can mean ending a relationship that once felt fated but now feels forced. It can mean leaving behind ideas that served your past but limit your present. And when Sagittarius says yes to that inner shift, truly says yes, the world responds. New opportunities arise seemingly from nowhere. People who match your current frequency start to appear. Unexpected doors swing open without effort. It's not magic. It's alignment. And that alignment only comes when you stop gripping what no longer belongs. What's ending now is not a punishment. It's a sacred clearing. The divine is asking you to make room for the next teacher, the next dream, the next version of you that can't be birthed in your current container. And while the unknown may feel terrifying at first, Sagittarius, remember this. Your soul has always known how to navigate uncharted lands. Trust that the life you truly desire is waiting. But first, you have to leave the one you've already outgrown. This is not abandonment. This is obedience to your expansion. And it may just be the most important move you'll make this decade. Gate 2: the gift and the goodbye. When Sagittarius leaves the familiar behind. Sagittarius isn't afraid of change. You've danced with uncertainty more than most. You crave adventure. You follow the scent of freedom even when the road is unclear. But what people don't always see, what even you sometimes forget, is that there are goodbyes that break you open. Not because you didn't want to leave, but because part of you hoped you wouldn't have to. It's easy to pack a bag and chase a dream across the world. But what happens when the thing you need to leave behind isn't a place, but a person, a version of yourself, a chapter you loved more than you ever admitted? This is where the real fire begins. For Sagittarius, attachment often looks different. You may not cling in the way others do. You may not beg or plead, but you feel. And when it's time to walk away from something that once felt like home, the grief comes in waves, slow, delayed, and sharp in unexpected places. Maybe it's the silence after you close the door. Maybe it's the memory of who you were when you first arrived. Or maybe it's the small gutting realization that you stayed just a little too long hoping something would change. But here's what most don't understand. Sagittarius leaves not because they stop caring, but because staying would mean self-betrayal. And yet, the moment you leave, the moment you honor that inner no more, something powerful happens. Space opens, clarity returns, and slowly the ache in your chest starts to shift into something else. Peace. The truth is, every goodbye holds a sacred contract. Every door you walk away from carries a lesson, a liberation, a redirection. And though it doesn't always reveal itself right away, that departure becomes the turning point you didn't know you needed. Some Sagittarians spend years trying to make something work before admitting it's time to go. You're optimistic by nature. You believe things can evolve. And that belief is beautiful. But it can also keep you trapped in a cycle of trying to fix what's actually meant to be released. The person, job, or situation you're being called to leave behind may not be bad. They may have once fit perfectly. But if you've begun to feel smaller in their presence, if you find yourself withholding truth, or softening your edges just to belong, then your soul has already started walking away. The rest of you is just catching up. There is a moment in every Sagittarian awakening when the grief of letting go finally transforms into gratitude. Gratitude for the time shared, gratitude for what you learned, and gratitude most of all that you had the courage to say, "I deserve more." That is the gift hidden inside the goodbye. Not just freedom, but faith. Faith that what's next will meet you where you are now, not where you used to be. Faith that your life isn't falling apart, it's falling into place. And faith that the version of you emerging from this letting go is more aligned, more whole, more ready than ever for what's ahead. So if you find yourself on the edge of a farewell, trust it. Feel the ache. Grieve the loss. But don't look back in fear. Because what you're walking toward is not empty. It's sacred. It's waiting. And it's yours. Gate 3: Love, Liberation, and Divine Timing. The sacred partnership Sagittarius was born for. Sagittarius isn't here for ordinary love. You don't crave the script, the roles, or the expected. You're not seeking someone to complete you. You're seeking someone to expand with you. And until that kind of connection finds you, you'd rather keep walking alone than shrink yourself to fit inside a half-lived relationship. But even the wildest hearts long to be seen. Even the freest spirits hope quietly for a bond that doesn't just understand their need to fly, but flies beside them. You've likely tasted love that felt almost right. A flame that burned bright but not deep enough. A connection that promised growth but asked you to wait. Someone who said they loved you but only if you stopped moving, stopped changing, stopped becoming. And being Sagittarius, you tried to adapt. Maybe you dimmed your opinions, or tucked away your passport, or traded passion for peace. Not because you were weak, but because you wanted to believe love could work. But love, real love, the kind your soul signed up for, was never meant to tame you. It was meant to ignite you. You were born under a fire sign for a reason. Your heart carries a code for divine timing, spiritual alignment, and soul-to-soul connection. And the love you're destined for? It's not just romantic. It's revelatory. It doesn't bind. It mirrors. It challenges and awakens. It says, "Come exactly as you are, and keep becoming." Sagittarius, the universe is not keeping you from love. It's preparing you for the love that can hold your truth without trying to control it. The kind of love that doesn't ask, "Will you stay?" but instead asks, "Can we grow together freely?" But here's the twist. Before that love can arrive, you must first love your own wildness enough not to abandon it. That's the real journey. The heartbreaks, the near misses, the karmic connections, they weren't mistakes. They were mirrors. They showed you what you won't compromise. They reminded you who you are when you forget. And they carved out the space in you that only a true spiritual partner could ever enter. The evolved Sagittarius doesn't chase love. They invite it. With presence. With clarity. With an open, honest heart that says, I will walk beside you, but I will never walk away from myself again. And when the timing is right, and it will be right, the kind of partner who honors your fire, your truth, your vastness will appear. Not as a test, not as a lesson, but as a recognition, a homecoming. Until then, keep loving yourself like the soul you're waiting for already has. Keep moving toward your truth. Keep saying no to what dims you. And trust. The love you were made for is not behind you. It's ahead, already finding its way toward your light. Conclusion: your exit is your becoming. Sagittarius, you were never meant to stay in one chapter for too long. You carry the sacred blueprint of movement, of expansion, of soul evolution. When the universe begins to whisper, it's time to leave, it's not an ending, it's an invitation. One that only the bravest hearts can hear. The restlessness you felt? It's not a flaw. It's a compass. And the losses you've endured, the changes you didn't ask for, the spaces you've outgrown, they've all been preparing you to reclaim yourself. Not just as a seeker, but as a guide. Not just as a wanderer, but as one who walks with wisdom. You've now stood at the edge of endings. You've felt the ache of goodbye. You've learned what it means to leave with grace and to grieve with honor. But most of all, you've remembered this truth. Your life is not meant to make sense to the version of you that had to stay small to survive. You are not that version anymore. So if this message touched something in you, if it echoed a truth you've tried to silence, don't let it pass like a shooting star. Let it land. Let it remind you that the place you're leaving wasn't your prison. It was your cocoon. And now it's time to fly. If you felt seen in this message, share it. If it resonated, like it, not for attention but as a soul mark that says, I'm ready. And subscribe if you want to keep walking with me, Sophia, through the cosmic, messy, beautiful process of becoming. Because this is more than astrology. This is your unfolding. And Sagittarius, your next chapter is already waiting.